Alex had felt free and safe with his life at the farm, college was even more open and liberated. Everyone was outwardly expressive, wore their hearts on their sleeves. They loudly and proudly proclaimed to everyone they could see and who could hear them exactly who they were and everything they were about. Over the first few months, he met countless people, freely slept around, and gained a reputation on campus as the resident masochist. The gay one, anyway. Of course, there was a straight one as well. Of course there was. Why wouldn't there be? Of course there was a straight girl and a lesbian too. They were still waiting on the non-binary one. Everyone talked about this mythical person as they would be the chosen one. For a long time he drifted around between parties at night, going home with whoever, whenever he felt like it. After a while he had settled into what he had known he wanted to do from the beginning. He gathered a designated group of people who all served a specific purpose. He wanted to do a Seven Deadly Sins theme, but the group was too big. Still, he liked the concept, and then his own mind assigned a sin to each new person. Gary was still envy, and he had a feeling that it would not change. Him and Gary lived in the college dorms, and of course when the people at the farm insisted they share a room, neither of them objected. Alex because he had started taking genuine pleasure in teasing Gary, and Gary because he truly did not know how to live his life without Alex anymore. He loved him to the point where, over time, even his teasing was endearing. If anything, he was starting to love it too much. Without being able to put it into words or explain why, Gary had developed strange fancies, thoughts and fantasies of seeing Alex with other men, wanting to be present but not wanting to do anything himself. Gary was at first hesitant to share his ideas with Alex, afraid of being judged and shamed, but when he finally did, he realized that Alex was the last person who would ever judge anyone for anything. Of course, this made Gary love him even more. And so, by his own request, Gary had become Alex's boyfriend, and the only one who would effectively never really sleep with him. It had given him a strange rush of pleasure that he could not make sense of, that seemed like it didn't have any logic behind it and felt jarring as it had no real reason to be there and should not have been. He wondered if pain gave the same feeling to Alex. When the two finally talked about it, Gary had almost regretted not just doing what Alex had asked that he should do in the beginning. Alex was familiar with the feeling that Gary described, but insisted that pain to him was a much greater ecstasy. And now he could see it on Alex's face, see the pleasure in his eyes and his expression. All the time he had spent worrying about whether Alex was all right, about whether someone had gone too far, now seemed far away and long gone. Though they did not sleep with one another, Alex would sometimes creep into bed next to Gary. He knew that Alex still had nightmares sometimes, and just did his best to comfort him. Alex was not aware of this, and Gary would never tell him, but sometimes he whimpered while talking in his sleep, bits and scattered pieces of whatever he was dreaming about. He sounded sad and afraid. As the months went by, the nightmares became less frequent, but Alex still kept creeping in next to him. It seemed, for all intents and purposes, as though they were a real couple. The only exception was when Adrian was around, and Alex would cling to him every second of their time together. Even then, Gary was still happy. Even though he wouldn't leave Adrian's side, he would every so often glance in Gary's direction with a sadistic smile, sending shivers down his spine. Everything was pretty good. In the afternoons, they went to classes together and Gary helped him study, and Alex would try his best to concentrate for as long as possible before heading up to the dorm room again with whoever. It seemed to help him focus, but only to an extent. Alex was behind on a lot of his assignments, and seemingly had little to no aptitude for this kind of work that he was trying to study. It seemed the only reason he was doing it in the first place was out of loyalty to the people at the farm, and a genuine desire to improve things around that place. They had offered to pay tuition for him on the condition that he do well in school, although that term seemed like it could mean anything. He was pulling mostly C grades and failing a few times. The only other thing that Alex seemed to be able to focus on was church, which he had, in spite of a lot of scoffing from the other Puritans in the Catholic crowd, gone to every Sunday morning, without fail and without excuses. He went for confessions regularly, and Gary wondered whether Alex truly believed that his lifestyle was wrong, or whether he was trying to prove some sort of point. One particular afternoon, Gary had for the first time noticed a drawing in the corner of a page in Alex's book. Curious, he flipped through the rest of it, only to find that each page contained a detailed small piece of art, beautifully drawn. In an effort to get him to do more, Gary tricked him into thinking that they had an art project for class. He couldn't live with the lie and reveal the truth before Alex had even finished the drawing, but that did not seem to negatively impact the final result. Ultimately, it came out looking beautiful. Gary went to sit in on a lecture on art history, and afterwards, when the other students had left, he asked the professor about whether it was too late for the new student to join. He was told that if someone wanted to join, they could, if they were able to make up the old projects from the past few months and catch up on the theory. Gary made a few phone calls, talked to Alex, and after some arduous convincing, he switched majors. They made love for the first time that night, and the next morning, when Alex walked into the art class full of mostly unfamiliar faces, he ran to greet the professor, who turned out to be Michael. The two hadn't seen each other in years, and it was all that Alex could do to sit still during the lecture. The entire time, all he did was sit and draw and daydream. When the class was finally dismissed, Michael went up to him, and it was as though not a day had passed since they last saw each other. They went to a nearby cafe and talked for hours, catching up over fries and milkshakes and making plans to be in each other's lives, permanently. "Listen," Michael told him. "I need to tell you something important." "What is it?" "I don't know if you remember, but when you were really young, you had a half-brother." His heart nearly hit the floor as Michael proceeded to tell him about the young man whom had claimed to also have escaped from the cult at a young age, albeit with some amount of help. When they first saw each other, Alex immediately recognized him, not as his brother, but as the priest who he would see and hear every Sunday and confess to in order to try and convince himself that the people in the church, the ones judging him, looking down on him and shaming him, were not right in all that they said. And there he was, Jordan, Alex's older brother, half-brother, same mother, different fathers. Jordan did not recognize Alex as easily. He was usually hidden in the crowd on Sundays, and the priest never saw his face during confessions. The minute he spoke, however, Jordan knew exactly who he was. "You," he whispered, and Alex heard the disgust in his voice. Without actually explaining anything to Michael, he just shook his head in defiance. "No, no, just no. I don't care if you are family. I am not sitting through this again." "So you know exactly—" "Yes, I do," Alex said. "And you know what? I'm tired of hearing it. It gets old, brother. It gets old really fast. If you were going to shame me, you should have done it while I was confessing, but this is not happening. To this damn day, no one can give me any sort of logical explanation on why my life is wrong, other than that it's against the Bible. When I ask them what part of the Bible says that, they all just insist I'm being obtuse. I've had enough of it. I spent my whole damn life in that cult not being allowed to ask why things are wrong, and I'm not living like that again. Michael, take me home, please." Without needing to be told, Michael understood the situation and shook his head at the priest before leaving. Jordan sat there, baffled. He hadn't been able to explain himself. That he was not against his brother being gay or even his polyamory, although that was not his all-time favorite thing. His judgment had been because of his brother's overt masochism and a feeling that the temple of God, the human body, should not be violated in such a way. He spent the rest of the day rewriting his sermon for the coming week. It was originally meant to be on the topic of adultery, though he changed it now to the topic of love, unconditional love, like what Jesus originally preached. "There ought to be some changes in that old church," he said to himself. "I might be able to make a few of them." That Sunday morning, he looked around the crowded room for his brother while delivering his sermon, and did not see him. Afterwards, when everyone was gathering outside for idle chit-chat, a young man walked up to him, someone he had never seen before. "Good morning, Father," Gary told him. "I know that we don't know each other, but I'm here today on behalf of someone. Is that so? He said, raising an eyebrow. Yes, he didn't ask me to take his place, but I felt like he would regret it if neither of us came. I was going to ask you to talk to him, but after today's sermon, I think I should explain to you a few things that you might not know about your brother, he said, smiling. The priest returned his smile, and they walked in the morning sun as they spoke together about a lot of things. Gary learned more about what the cult was really like than Alex had ever told him, and Jordan learned why Alex was the way that he was. You know, Jordan told him, Alex did confess to me that there is a man he loves, but cannot truly be happy with, because he is the only one who cannot and will not show him affection. At the time, I thought it was awful, a person who won't hug you, or say that they love you, or kiss you, or hold your hand. What sort of relationship is that? But to him, that's the same thing, Gary told him. Well, that I know now. When he explained it to me at the time, I just thought it was terrible what he was doing to his own God-given body. I still don't think it's right, and I don't believe that I ever will, but I understand now why he does these things, and that even before I knew it, it was wrong for me to judge him. Will you tell him that? I will, when I see him again. I owe my little brother an apology. But, he said more seriously, you need to have a serious talk with him, not about the violence, but about his future. I know, he sighed, but I don't think he has any idea what he wants to do. He has this talent, but no real way of putting it to use, and he still wants to do something on the farm. Well, ask him about it. Ask him until you're blue in the face and write down his responses if you need to. Between the two of you, you need to figure out what he's going to do. Take as many hours as you need for that discussion. I will, Father. Thank you, he said, shaking his hand goodbye. Gary stopped at the coffee shop on his way back to the dorm and briefly sat alone to enjoy a cup of mocha. It had been a long time since he had really been able to enjoy anything without Alex, he realized. But now their real lives together were starting. The honeymoon phase was over, and they had to start putting in real work to keep things going. The challenge seemed exciting, rather than daunting. Back at the shared room, Alex was sitting at his desk with papers scattered everywhere around him. Alex, he said, I need to talk to you. Me too, he replied, getting up to hug and kiss his boyfriend. What's all this? Gary asked, his arm still around Alex's waist. I've been planning some things, figuring things out. It took all morning, but I think I finally have it. Oh yeah? Gary asked, feeling foolish for ever having been worried in the first place. Alex, no matter how far off track he got, would always return to his center, somehow or other, and regain focus on what really mattered to him. He saw it happen time and again. Yes, Michael introduced me to some new study methods that really helped me think more clearly. Well, not new, but new to me. I made a mind map and a vision board, and I think I finally know what I want to do, Gary. I finally have every last detail figured out. He realized he'd been smiling, and took hold of Alex's hands and kissed them, although he knew the gesture meant nothing to him. Show me, and tell me everything,